Right, well, we've cleaned the tape off and the dribbly bits of undercoat. If you remember, this was the there was rust at the ends where it had basically been sat uncovered. And the moment of truth. Come on. It's, yeah, you can just see middle of the frame there. It's all the way along. So, and it's the same both sides. So basically, as you'd expect, the wear highest in the middle, less at the ends, and which stacks up with what you can see. Nice shiny polish section, fading out, and same that side. The edge of this dovetail's had some trauma. I don't know what, looks like could have even been lifting chains or something when it's been lifted up. Some dinks out of that side as well. So I'm going to have a look, see if when it's set on that, that's a machined face there for the clamp. Sitting on my granite stone and check the heights, get it so that I can actually stick it on there, and then at least I've got a means of measuring it flat with a DTI as opposed to just taking a surface print. Don't think it'll matter if for example, I scrape more off this end, as long as it's the same both sides and a flat plane on both. It would just mean that the thing's travelling along like that, or like that, as long as it doesn't go like that. Oh, you never know. This might be my first scraping in exercise. Slightly apprehensive. At least it takes a lot longer to cock it up than it does with a milling. So we're in the metrology department, or metrology. That'll be everything inside the red square, underneath the pillar drum. I've got the ram inverted. I've cleaned the top machined face, and that's a bit snotty. It's sat on a machine parallel, which I've checked is parallel. The end of the slides are obviously, well, not obviously, you can see the rust on them. So I'm ignoring that at the moment, and I've set that as a datum of 00. And then coming out, scooting along, these are in thou, so 1.5 thou, down 1.5 thou, down 2, down 4 this side and 3.5 that side. I would say it's nearly 4, and then down 5 at this point, which would suggest quite a linear wear pattern. However, that is based on the overriding assumption that that face, which is what we're sat on, is supposed to be parallel with the slides. I see no reason why it shouldn't be, but that doesn't necessarily mean it should be. What I am thinking is that machined face should be at 90 to that face. So I'm going to uncover that, make sure it's clean, and then I've got to somehow come up with a way of checking that that is at 90 degrees to that. So I don't know how good my engineer's square is, but I suppose I can verify it with the DTI. So that's where we're at now. Alright, it's perhaps not as Stan would do. That's a Mitutoyo square, which I've checked best I can. Flat on the stone, DTI up against it, zeroed it, flipped it over, put it back up, and it's zeroed. I can't see any daylight. When I put a torch behind it, all I can see is the machine marks, light getting through the machine marks. In order, I mean, my gut feel says if I've got 5 thou from there to there, I would see something approaching a gap at the bottom end, and there's nothing. So that would suggest that that bottom face that it's sitting on was machined square to this face, which is what determines that that's square to the tool head. So it looks like we've got 5 thou wear end to end. It's possibly a little bit more. Oh, man flu, off to bed. Yeah. So my next task is I've got to work out how to measure that face to that face. I've seen it done on where you've got a slot you can put a dowel into either side and measure the diameter, or measure across the dowels, but there's no way I can hold a dowel on that I can think of, unless I have something which sits on this surface and that surface with a dowel at fixed height below it, so that it always comes in to pick up off the same position on the dovetail. So that's my next task, is have a look online, see how you measure those, and if anybody has any ideas, please do comments below, kind of thing. I'm just looking for a pen so I can better describe what it is I'm doing. So on my cleanish piece of board, we've got the dovetail like that, and then the casting, and I want to make sure that if that's the center line, that distance at a given height is maintained on the other side, so that that position is parallel basically all the way down. They look a bit snotty at the minute. My next job is I'm just going to flip it over and have a look, see if I can pick up any measurements at a given height above the surface table. The problem is I've got no means of setting a distance off. There's no common datum, because this edge is damaged quite badly from here. Pick it up here, you can see it all chewed off there, and it's pretty much the same to that point on the other side. So yeah, I've flipped it over. So I wanted to check what that top machine surface was like, which you can see is pretty rusted and whatnot, and there's a definite area of, well, it's not rusted, but it's where it's been clamped on. Anyway, if I set the DTI to 0 there, and then move it all the way up, and then reposition it at the same spot there, it's reading 0. Now it's sat partly on the rusted area here, which goes to about here, and then I'm literally just on the inside edges there. So it could just be it's sat up on the spots of least wear, in which case all's well and good. However, the reason for doing it is just to show that's 2, 4, 5 thou on that point, and the same on that point. So I think I'm going to have to bugger about and sit it there, and then do the measurements again on the underside. What I'll have to do is sit it on those two. Basically I want to know that I'm parallel to that, Oh, I don't know. Yeah. Oh. Trying to get your head around the geometry of it. Right, well, I've switched over to my new Mercer. Just cleaned everything down. This has got a lot less wear because it's hardly been used. It's measuring in tenths. So these parallels are good to about 1/3 of a thou. I've swept them once. It's for the purposes of the video. Needle's a little bit sticky, but that'll do. Right, we're working on a tenth indicator. We've got a bit of preload on there. We seem to be alright for a it's a bit of a slow return, but what I'm looking for is thou rather than tenths. It's just that it's easier to see it show up on this. So that's the front end of the underside of the ram. So I'm still what? 1/3 of a thou, so 3 10,000ths. That's about as far back as I can go because I'm losing my table underneath. That's why the droop. Then what I have got is some wear side to side. That's not 2 thou and 2 tenths, so 22 tenths. And then this side has got some wear top to bottom. Sorry about the crappy filming. It's hard to pan with the DTI and the camera, and look what I'm doing. Not a great deal of wear from front to back, but certainly from side to side. So ignoring the numbers I've written on there, I've had to change the DTI because the other one had got a bit of wear. So the plunger was able to move a little bit, which was giving me all sorts of false readings. But what it's looking like is that corner is around 2 thou lower than that corner, but the wear is within 1/2 thou up to here, and that's excluding the crappy bit of rusty bits at the back there. That's based on the whole thing sat on a big pair of parallels on the machine surface which the clamp fits to, which I know isn't ideal. So it's not as bad as it was showing up yesterday, where I was measuring 4 and 5 thou wear, which was all down to the indicator. So I'm going to flip it over and do a print off it. Whether I do that now or I'll do the rest of my measurements and then ink the table and do them all at once, I don't know. I haven't worked that out yet. Getting quite a few suggestions as to how I can measure the wear on that face versus the same one on the underside there. I've got to make up a jig which will sit over the top, something like that, with a round bar underneath, probably on the far side, and then the indicator hung off perpendicular to that face, so I get the dial here and then I can slide it along and read the wear off this side. And in theory, if it's one side should be measured. I'm only looking at them being parallel, so I've only got to measure along one face, as long as they're both flat. A lot of references to a guy called Connolly who wrote apparently the Bible on scraping and machine refurbishment. It's a bit out of my price league. Cheapest I've seen it from guys that have found it were $100. By the time I've paid shipping and UK tax, takes it up to $150, $160, something like that. It's just too rich for my blood. So I'm working off a downloaded electronic version, but they already want 40 quid just to print that out, so I'm trying to read it on my screen, which is not ideal, but I might just print the pages I want out. That's where we're up to at the moment. Right, it's quite a heavy inking. As suspected, the rusty areas have picked up shed loads. There's a bit here. And the main areas of contact are the unworn ridge, if you like. Well, that's not an unworn ridge, that just could be heavy ink. And down there, tiny bit there. Now, when I flipped it over and it's sat, if it is sat on that ridge and that ridge all the way down, which would suggest it is doing, and I measured the height to the machine underside of that machined surface there, and it was right at this end and right at this end with a dip in the middle. When it's sat this way up, it is sat on that point and that point. So when I've sat it on my parallels, I'm fairly confident now that those parallels are, and the way the thing is sat, it's sat so that it's actually as square as it needs to be. So that would suggest that there is that side is 2 thou lower than that side. Right, just put the ram back on, sat it on, not put the gib in. So this is the corner where the underside of this appears to be 2 thou low. Now also, when I put a straight edge down here on the flat bearing face, there's a definite falling away. I've tried then to put, thinking that, well, therefore I should be able to get a feeler gauge in there, but can't get a 2 thou feeler gauge in there. Not a great deal of use looking at that, but just trying to get my head round what kind of things to expect, so that I don't trip over when I do bring it into scrape. If I've got to take that face off at all, this clearance there for the dovetail to ride up, because obviously as that face goes in that way, that will come fractionally more, so plenty of clearance there. Yeah, I can't feel any rock either, but on the other hand, it's trapped under that dovetail, so why, I wouldn't expect to feel much, but I would expect to be able to get a feeler gauge in there if there's a 2 thou gap plus whatever that's dropping out. So I think the starting point has to be to flatten these two surfaces front to back as true as I can, to make sure that I don't introduce an incline or similar. If they're flat and true, and then work from that. I need to get them flat to be able to measure these accurately, and again, I'm dubious as to whether there's any significant wear on those. So there we go. We're on the fourth cycle of printing. I'm removing the corroded section at the back, and then the two internal wear lines, and then this one, which is the high edge. So I'm assuming that that will slowly work its way across. That's the internal wear line. I want to get this away first, then at least I know it's sitting on something that isn't worn anymore. No, sorry, it's sitting on the worn surfaces rather than the original machine surfaces. It's 26 inches long and my stone's 24, so there's a bit of a false reading, as you can imagine, because it sits on it to about here, and then as you move it backwards, this section comes into contact. If you move it that way, that section comes into contact, and then it works its way back, leaving itself out eventually. We just re-inked the block, and this is the high side, that's the worn side. I'm ignoring this section at the moment. The inside edges are coming on, still a bit high. But it was slowly this side going down, which will take it from being tipped to doing that. Tipped on the basis of one edge is worn, so it's sitting down, so that'll bring it back down to square. Well, that's my logic anyway. Yeah, I think it's time for lunch. Heavy work lifting that thing up and down. Okay, so we've been on it I think about 7 hours now. You can see I've just reprinted it. So progressing down. The plan, we're still working on bringing this area down so that this is 2 thou lower than when it started, which should bring it into alignment there. We're still getting a print at the back there, so we've obviously still got to go down quite a bit with this, but you can see every time I reprint I get ink right along the edge of this scrape, so it is slowly progressing its way across. Yeah, just watched a short video by Keith Rucker on vintage machinery, and he's had a chap, somebody King Consulting, organised class for, I think there was about 13 guys in there to learn the art of scraping. Absolutely fantastic opportunity, but $1,600 per attendee for 5 days, which to me sounds a hell of a lot of money. There we go. So mine's trial and error learning. Well, I've had my Weetabix and started scraping down this near face. This is the second cycle of heavy scrapes. One cycle that way, one cycle that way, and then another one just to miss. I'm putting just parallel lines down with a Sharpie, I think, or black marker, just to make sure that I've covered each section. And what I'm finding is those 3 scrapes is taking me off around about 1/3 of a thou. So it's this side now stands 1.7 thou higher than that side, and that's pretty consistent apart from that last bit. So I've got, I don't know, 1/3 of a thou, so 3 cycles of that would be a thou. So I've got 6 cycles to go through, and it's knackering. Right, we're back on the surface plate. We've give this another couple of cycles, heavy scraping. The idea is to get it all now to read 00 from that corner all the way around. We're on a thou indicator. We're zeroed up. You have to bear with me because it's About a 3 kilo block it's sat on. That's within half a thou. So we're within a thou now, so I'm going to re-ink the block and start printing it. My supervisor's keeping a low profile. So yeah, we're going to ink it now, see what we get, and then it'll be start to bring it down into being a flat, true plane, and start spotting. Well, it's now dark outside. It's, another 4 hours today, but it's not easy to show you the print. We're getting a reasonable spread. It's now just a case of taking the high spots off and getting it down to, you get 20 blue points for every square inch. I'll cut myself a little cardboard template so I know what 20 points looks like. Scraping's not up to much, but I'm hoping I can rectify that as I take it down. Dog's thoroughly unimpressed. Anyway, making progress. Trying to show, I've just inked it, you can just about pick out the blue. Far less contact on this face than on the other. And certainly not 20 points per inch. Just for reference, end of that stone's an inch. So you're talking about that bit. Having trouble trying to get pick out each individual blue spot to drop down. Not so much seeing it, although that's problematic in itself, but trying to pick it out with the end of this scraper. That's 25mm wide, and it's got got a very slight arc on the end, of curve. Now obviously when you're holding it down at a steep angle, you can't actually see the contact point, and depending on what angle you're holding it at, you'll shift that contact point anywhere across that 25mm arc. So need to have a think about that one. Might make up my own scraper. I've tried the other one I've got, and it's not right, so at least I know a bit more about how to do it now. So we've just printed it again. I've left the ink on it. The black marks are my contact counts in a square inch. So I've just made a little stencil, dropped it on, and then coloured over the blue areas inside. We're averaging between 13 and 18 points within, but you can see it's not exactly smooth, which is fair enough because I've only just started spotting it. So I'm going to give it a rest now, and we'll get yourself cleaned up. We're off for haggis tonight, as it's we missed Burns night, which was Wednesday, so we're going to celebrate it tonight. And I think this is the 5th session. Sessions around 2 to 3 hours. I've more about the cock up later on, but I've just reprinted it. There's still a little bit too much ink on the plate at the moment, but you can see it's picking up nicely, fairly even spread. Appreciate it's not brilliant with the glare. There's a big section there which is not transferring, so it's all got to go down another couple of cycles, but we're getting there. Dog's thoroughly unimpressed. Long and the short of it was I got to this stage 2 days ago. I decided I'd flip it and take the height measurements across just to make sure I hadn't lost anything, and there was between 1.5 and 2 thou variation, one side higher than the other, which I was a little bit peeved about, but it's a learning process. So I set about scraping it flat. However, I took a phone call between measuring it and lifting it onto this plate, getting back to it next morning, marked up the side, scraped it off, then did a heavy scrape back, then did another heavy scrape, put it back up on the plate, and I'd successfully removed 1.5 thou from the wrong side, thus taking the difference to nearly 4 thou. If it had been a lighter piece, I think it would have been hurled down the shed. As it happens, I took stock, give it a good thorough measurement, and then I've spent the last 1.5 days bringing it back to this stage, which is really annoying, but shit happens. So scraping is not something that you can pick up and put down unless you are very clever in terms of what you mark up. It's my own fault. I should have marked it on the plate before I took the call, but there we go. It's interesting to watch the scraping training video that Adam Booth and Keith Rucker and John Saunders, and forgive me guys, I forgot the rest of the names. I'll try and put some links up on the bottom of this, but there was some really good information. What I wasn't aware of is that you can get colours other than blue, and if you use blue and yellow, you can coat the plate in yellow, coat the part in yellow, wipe off the excess, and then print blue. And what it does is it cuts the glare, so the blue stands out more. Yeah, I haven't found it in the UK yet though, so I have the manufacturer's name and in the States, so I'll be dropping them an email. Although God knows what 4 ounces of that shipped over the Atlantic will cost. There we go. It feels like about a month since I started this. I think it's 2.5 weeks. It's been an uphill learning curve. Where I'm at, I found I was getting inconsistencies on the print. I had a hump in it, so I've rectified that, but then trying to measure it to check whether I had got a hump, it was sitting on the boss face underneath this. I can't quite see it. Rock it over. I'm sitting on this face, which is where the clamp sits. I'm lifting it up and putting it back down, trying to get repeatable measurements was troublesome. I deburred it and then got completely different readings. So then I've re-scraped it, or I've not re-scraped it, I've now scraped it, so that I'm getting a reasonably good pick up all the way around even, which gives me a firm base upon which I can sit it and then get some measurements off. It is a right lump. I feel like I've been to the gym every day for lifting dumbbells. Anyway, so having then got a decent surface to sit on the granite plate, I've then gone around with a 10th indicator and I'm getting 0, 0 all the way along there. I can't see movement on the needle. I'm getting 0 there, and I'm getting 0 there, and the most I'm getting all the way down there is 2/10. Now it's not a great inking, there's a little bit too much ink on the plate, but it's pretty good contact all the way down this face, and not bad all the way along here. Fades out a bit in this section, which corresponds with it being 2/10 low maximum. Points of contact I'm getting from the sampled areas 28, 24, got 22 there, but they're concentrated in half the square. I've got a one section there which I can just squeeze the template into, which gives me 11. I never checked that one, but 21 and 28. I'm getting to the stage where I'm thinking enough's enough. I've got pretty good contact all over, with the exception of 2 postage stamps, so sod it kind of thing. I'm going to go over it one final time tomorrow, which will probably be 5 more times. And then I'm going to call this bit done, because the next job is to use this to print the main casting, and I'm not sure what I'm going to find with that, and that opens up a whole new can of worms, not least because I've got to start looking for original machined surfaces to take measurements from. I still haven't uploaded this because I wanted to actually get the scraping done on this, so I'll probably upload it tomorrow for another Tuesday viewing. Yeah, right in the smack bang in the middle of this, I managed to rook me back shifting firewood. I've moved 2.5 ton of firewood, and my back started screaming at me, so I've had a couple of days off. Anyway, yeah. Some of the guys out there that know what scraping's about will be screaming at me how horrid this looks, but I'm going for functionality. Well, I've decided to call it a day. I'm reasonably happy with the way it's turned out. Slightly heavy inking, and I've got a good spread on this side, and it's not far different on that side. As I say, the ink spread's not brilliant, but again it's consistent. That was a blob on the table, I think. Anyway, given it's about 3.5 weeks since I uploaded, I figured it's better do it. What have I learnt? Measuring 1/10 of a 1,000th of an inch is a pain in the ass. Before you do anything, you need a good measuring surface to work off. So the exercise is scraping the bottom half where it's seated now. I should have done right at the very beginning. Then I should have zoned it out with a pen so I could see where the high areas were, took them down, measured it again, and get it all within a couple of tenths from end to end in terms of measurements along, then start spotting it. Probably wouldn't have had to go through that rigmarole had the surface table been a 36 inch by 24, or even a 36 by 12 for that matter, but because the ram is basically 2 inches longer than my surface table, and I wasn't paying attention enough. What I was introducing was a rock as I was sliding it backwards and forwards. I subsequently found that we've got to basically lower it down, move it 1 inch one way, and then move it 1 inch the other way, or 2 inches the other way, and always holding it from the same end, always putting it in the same spot, always lower it, just being extremely consistent. Only then did I start getting repeatable results. It's been interesting. I wouldn't have said it was been fun, but it's quite rewarding when you see the finished scrape come up. I really wish I could have got hold of some of the water-based ink, or different coloured inks I should say. I'm not bothered about the fact that this is an oil-based one. I don't find it's a problem getting it off anything. It comes off the stone with Windoline or window cleaner, and I can clean it off the cast iron with a spot of white spirit should I need to. It's a bit glary, but it's nice. I'm reasonably happy with that. And there are umpteen other guys out there on YouTube who've got much better videos explaining how to do it. My advice to anybody who's thinking about it: weigh up how much weight there is you're lifting about. Make sure your surface plate is bigger than the item you're testing. Keep the ink you're applying to an absolute minimum. Less is best, and you'll soon work out, if you do a few prints, as to how much is too much and how much is not enough. You got to be able to see it, but by the same token, you don't want it just blued out all over. I would think that the ink application is one of the hardest things to get right. The actual scraping isn't difficult, providing you got a sharp tool. I've just reground it. I've been regrinding about every 3 or 4 days, and then honing the edge of the diamond hone by hand. I mean, yeah, it would be easier with a jig. Come on, pick it up. It's just maintaining the radius. I've probably made the radius slightly smaller than it was. It certainly makes very little difference. That's just hand grinding it. But then I learnt to grind tools by doing wood turning and freehand carving. Freehand turning a fingernail tip is a skill to develop. So the next job is to come up with a cunning plan. Uncover the shaper that's dog basket, stone cover, blanket. Uncover all of that and then start looking at ways to measure up the wear on the female slide, and I'll make that into a separate video. Well, we've had a couple of days break doing other stuff. We're back on scraping the ram underside. Got a bit concerned because I couldn't get a repeatable print, so I knew I'd been doing something wrong. And what I've put it down to is because the overall length of the surface is about 2 and a bit inches longer than my surface, no matter how I do it. I'd introduced a hump while scraping. That hump was around about half a thou. I can't feel it rock, but even just by holding it at the one end and moving it half an inch backwards and forwards, it was enough for it to do that, which was giving me a print all the way along. And I take the high spots off and repeat it, and I get a different spread. So I flipped it over and started doing some measurements. So if we take the rear corner as 0, just because that seemed to be a consistently low point, I've got the numbers are in tenths of a thou. So I've got 2 tenths up to that corner, and then running down this side we're 2 tenths, 1 tenth, 2 tenths, 1 tenth, 2 tenths, 2 tenths, 3 tenths, 3 tenths, 3 tenths, 2.5, 2, 3.5, 1.5. So there's a little bit of a raised area here. I would say these are good to a tenth plus or minus. So I'm 2 tenths higher here, and then I've got a high spot there which I was aware of because that's the limit of where the print would come when I was printing from that end and only moving it half an inch. So we got 2/10, 3.5, 5, so that's half a thou up, just under half a thou, 3/10, a little more than half a thou, up to 7/10, then we've got 7, 8, 6, 8, 5, 8. So basically this corner, which is where I was getting the inconsistent print, is somewhere in the region of between 7 and 8/10 high, which I was surprised about. I thought I would I didn't think I'd get that much variation, but I've measured it half a dozen times. I'm now on a different gauge. I'm setting the preload a little bit higher, so and then I have to tap the top of this to get a reading so that everything settles. But chasing tenths on my setup is not easy. That's why I say there's a plus or minus a tenth in it anyway. So if you said that this corner is your base 0, I'm at worst 8/10 out, at best somewhere around about 7. So within half a thou. No good for what I want. So I've got to try, before I start taking off more material, I've measured it and measured it again. It's yeah, there's a whole new skill set to pick up. I want to get it within basically 3/10 over the whole surface. Then I'd be reasonably happy that I can move on to print the main casting. So I've got half a thou variation to get rid of. I'm not even sure that this is going to be of interest, but just working it through. Once I've dimensioned everything or measured it, I drew a load of tram lines down and then hatched out the high area, scraped across that way, and then came back that way, and then went back that way, and that took off 3/10. Measured it all again, mapped it all out as I've done here, and then scraped it again over the whole surface, and that's brought it down to where we are now. So we've got 2/10, 4/10, 6/10, 4/10, 6/10, 5/10, 6/10, 4/10, and then for whatever reason got an area of somewhere between 7 and 8/10. It's not very big. It's I mean the scraping marks all look fairly consistent. Don't understand why, but anyway, that way here is going to get hit with two passes. This ends down to 4, and remember, all I'm looking at doing is getting it below 3, so that's fine. That's within the 3/10 tolerance I'm looking at from that point over the whole lot, a third of a thou, and then I think I'll be able to spot it as long as it doesn't drop below 0. So I'm not going to take it through another cycle now. That's 4, not 8. So it's just basically hit that area and then go back, extend it to that area, clean it all off, measure it again, and that should bring me down to everything within 5. And then I'll take the whole of that back edge down again to bring me down to somewhere between 3 and 4. That's the plan. Supervisor's not looking, so I might do something different. Yep, we're still on it. I read a few more chapters out of Connolly's book. I think I'm up to chapter 10 now. Long and the short of it is I decided that because I'd got some areas up here which weren't coming in, or painfully slow, I took a word of advice from the book and basically re-scraped both faces, first that way and then in reverse, so I got a cross hatch. I think they were around about ½ an inch long scrapes, and I'm now on about the 4th cycle of just taking off the high spots. I know it ain't a pretty surface, but I'm getting a reasonable distribution of bearing points. And that couple of extra, let's call them roughing scrapes, has brought in these two areas with a slight fading out on contact points down at this end, but I'm going to go back and just knock off the high spots again, see if it picks it up a bit more. The Connolly's book is wordy, slow going, but incredibly informative. I can see why it's regarded as one of the better choices. Mine's a PDF copy downloaded, and some of the pages aren't particularly well reproduced, but I can get the general idea. And there's no beats reading it whilst you're doing it, because all of a sudden the cock-ups that you've made are put into plain English or American, and you can go back and ring the changes, and you can understand what it is you got wrong, as opposed to trial and error, trial and error, trial and error. So moving forward, interestingly, my scraping technique is improving in so much as I'm getting faster at the rough scraping. Now that could be muscle memory, it could be the new handle on the end of my scraper. I've got a substantial bruise in my shoulder pad from not using one, so that's definitely a worthwhile mod. And the difference between a sharp blade and a blunt blade. Still got some work to do on honing of the edge. If you look closely, you can see each individual scrape mark, but you can also see the scratches within. Now that has to be down to either crap built up on the edge, which is possible, but I do wipe it off with my thumb each every few strokes, or the actual honed edge is not honed as well as it should be. Anyway, it's been an education, plenty of work to go, so I'll get this uploaded tonight and then take a view.
Dog's thinking, enough already, quit while you've done.